Hello, welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady.
Hello and welcome back to our day 84 of our 100 days to CAT test series of the Gurukul CAT prep. Now, in case you want to take this passage as a test, all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in and sign up for the 100 days to CAT test series. In case you want to follow along with this video, then these are the first parts of your passage. Pause the video here, read these parts, and then we'll go into the second parts of your passage. These are the second parts of your passage. Pause the video here, read these parts, and then we're going to go into the questions. This is your question number 1. Pause the video here, answer this question, and then we'll go into the question number 2. This question number 2, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we'll go into the question number 3. This is question number 3, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we'll go into the question number 4. This is question number 4, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we'll go into the passage and question explanations. What does this passage talk about? The worst and the longest economic crisis in the modern industrial world, the Great Depression in the United States, had a devastating consequence for American society. At its lowest depth, that means when it was the worst, more than 16 million people were unemployed and more than 5,000 banks had closed and over 85,000 businesses had failed. Okay. Millions of Americans lost their jobs, their savings, and even their homes. The homeless built shacks of temporary shelter. These emerging shanty towns were nicknamed Hoovervilles, a bitter homage to the president Herbert Hoover, who refused to give government assistance to the jobless. So, two ideas that I get from here is that devastation of US people and business during the Great Depression, right? So this is one, and then government failed to help these people. So these are the ideas that I get till here. Farmers were hit especially hard. A severe drought coupled with the economic crisis ruined small farms throughout the Great Plains as productive farmland turned to dust and crop prices dropped by 50%. The effects of the American Depression, severe unemployment rates and sharp drop in the production and sales of goods could also be felt abroad, where many European nations were still struggling to recover from World War I. So now he also continues the ideas over here by saying that farmers and exports also took a hit, right? So over here, although the stock market crash of 1929 marked the onset of depression, that means that was the start of depression. It was not the cause of it, so that was not the cause for it. Okay, so deep underlying fissures. Fissures are nothing but, cracks. So let me just write this down here. Fissures are nothing but cracks. Okay, so the deep underlying fissures already existed in the economy of America's roaring 20s, so the 20s, 1920s and all of that. Okay, for example, the tariff and the war debt policies after World War I contributed to the instability of the banking system. So all these tariffs and the kind of war, the World War I debt, the policies that were there for that particular recovery of that debt and giving off the debt greatly contributed to the instability of the banking system. That means the banking system was not able to withhold itself because of all this already. American banks made loans to European countries following World War I. However, the US kept a high tariffs on goods imported from other nations. These policies worked against one another. So obviously, when they gave up a lot of money to these European nations, and when they are importing the goods which basically European nations are trying to sell to America, they're keeping high tariffs. That means there was a lot of protectionism, right? What would happen? They would not be able to sell their goods effectively. Now, if they don't sell their goods, how will these people even repay the American banks? So that is one problem, right? Right. If other countries could not sell goods in the United States, they could not make enough money to pay back their loans or to buy American goods. So from here, what is the idea that I get? I get the idea that somewhere stock market crash. Okay, so the stock market crash started Great Depression. Okay, but this was not the cause of it. Another thing that I see is that the policies, right? Policies and tariffs greatly impacted it. Yes, so now let's move on to the next part of this passage. Okay, so this part of the passage says, and while the United States seemed to be enjoying a prosperous period in the 1920s, the wealth was not evenly distributed. Businesses made gains in productivity, but only one segment of the population, the wealthy, reaped large profits. Workers received only a small share of the wealthy they helped produce. At the same time, Americans spent more than they earned. Advertising encouraged Americans to buy cars, radios, and household appliances instead of saving or purchasing only what they could afford. Easy credit policies allowed consumers to borrow more money and accumulate debt. Investors also widely speculated on the stock market, often borrowing money on credit to buy shares of a company. Stocks increased beyond their worth, but investors were willing to pay inflated prices because they believed stocks would continue to rise. This bubble burst in the fall of 1929 when investors lost confidence that stock prices would keep rising. As investors sold off stocks, the market spiraled downward. The stock market crash affected the economy in the same way that a stressful event can affect the human body, lowering its resistance to infection. Now, what are the ideas that we get from here? The first thing, okay, from here I get the idea that even when the GD did not happen, the Great Depression did not happen, only businesses were profitable. Yes, the other idea that I get from this part till here is that American people were lured into acquiring debt. They gathered debt onto themselves and often made seemingly risky investments and purchased unnecessary objects. Yes, this is another idea that I can get. Yes, and from here I can get the idea that stock markets unpredictability and the breakage of investors' optimism finally led to the Great Depression. Correct? So I get these three important ideas from here. The ensuing depression led to the election of President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932. Roosevelt introduced relief measures that would revive the economy. That means it would bring back the economy and bring needed relief to Americans who were suffering the effects of the depression. So once Roosevelt came into power, once he was elected, he tried to make things better. In his first 100 days in office, Roosevelt and Congress passed major legislation that saved banks from closing and regained public confidence. These measures, called the New Deal, included the Agriculture Adjustment Act, which paid farmers to slow their production in order to stabilize food prices, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insured bank deposits in case that banks fail, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, which regulated the stock market. So basically three important laws or legislations were passed, which basically brought back, okay, from here what do I understand? FDR came and passed laws, three of them important ones, that revived farmers, banks and stock markets. Right, so this is what I understand from there. Next, the last part of it. Although the New Deal offered relief, it did not end depression. Now this is very, very important, guys. So although there was some kind of a relief, the depression did not really end. The economy sagged, that means it went low until the nation entered World War II. Okay, so the economy kind of kept on suffering till US entered World War II. However, the New Deal changed the relationship between government and American citizens, expanding the role of the central government in regulating the economy and creating social assistance programs. So basically what happened was that initially central government did not really venture into regulating the economy. But once this Great Depression happened and all, it created, bodies and legislations which could actually regulate the flow of economy in the country, thereby reducing the risk of such a depression happening again. Now that we've understood the passage, let's get into the questions. Now this is our first question. The author's main point about the Great Depression is that government policies had nothing to do with it. Okay, it's not that government policies had nothing to do with it. Great Depression, the author is mentioning that government did not do enough, not that it had nothing to do with the government. So obviously this is not going to be my answer. The government immediately stepped in with assistance for the jobless and homeless. No, in fact the Hooverville and all are evidences that show us that until Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected, government did not step in. So 2 is also not the correct answer. Underlying problems in the economy preceded it. Yes, the speculative bubbles that was talked about the stock market and all, they were the underlying problems. And although in 20s the advertising and all that we spoke about, those are also the underlying problems. The credit worthiness and all that we spoke about is also the underlying problem. So this seems like a good answer so far. 4, the New Deal policies introduced by Franklin D. Roosevelt ended it. Now this is the problem. I would have been very happy if he did not say ended it. Instead he said something like reduced it or ameliorated it. I would be very happy to mark this as the answer. But since he said ended it, this becomes an answer which is definitely opposite to what's been told in the passage. So definitely this is not going to be my correct answer. The best possible answer would be 3. Now let's go to the question number 2. The passage is best described as an account of the causes and effects of a major event. Okay, fair enough. I could talk about the major event as the Great Depression, and he is giving me the causes and effects of the Great Depression. So this seems like a good answer. Second one, a statement supporting the value of federal social policies. Now see, this comes way towards the end of it, just as an effect of the Great Depression, right? How it has revived, America back from the Great Depression, right? So this is a very partial scope choice, and I would not be considering this as my answer. Third one, a condemnation of the outdated beliefs. Again, there's no outdated beliefs that we have talked about specifically in the passage. So we're not condemning anything. So third one will not be my answer. Fourth one, a polite response to a controversial issue. Again, even if we were to think of the Great Depression as a controversial issue, there's not been any polite response to it. He's just analyzed and he's told me why, what and how things have happened around the Great Depression. So this is not going to be our correct answer. Now the best possible answer for this question becomes 1. Let's go to the third question of our passage. The author cites the emergence of Hoovervilles as an example of. So what were these Hoovervilles? Why did the author talk to us about Hoovervilles? Are they federally sponsored housing programs? Absolutely not. These homeless people, named those shanty towns as Hoovervilles, the towns that were just set up as tents and all, because President Hoover did not help them. They did not give any kind of a remedy for them. So definitely not federally sponsored housing programs. The resilience of Americans who lost jobs, savings and homes. Again, resilience may be a bit big of a word, but I'll keep this option alive for now because it's a better option than 1. If I find any other better option than 2, I would definitely go for it. The government's unwillingness to assist citizens in desperate circumstances. Yes, Hoovervilles are the resemblance that Hoover did not help them. So government was unwilling. This is now a better answer than 2. So 2 will not be my answer. 4, a new paradigm of safety net social programs introduced by the government. Again, this was not a safety net social program. This was not introduced by the government. People went there and built that themselves so that they could stay because no one was helping them. So this is definitely not going to be my answer. The best possible answer now becomes 3. Let's go to the last question of this passage. The example of the human body as a metaphor for economy suggests that. Now, what was the metaphor that was given? In the second or the third paragraph, here he said that as investors sold off stocks, the market spiraled downward, the stock market crash affected the economy. In the same way, that a stressful event can affect the human body, lowering its resistance to infection. That means it led to the start of something very, very dangerous, right? So, A stressful event like the stock market crash of 1929 probably made a lot of people sick. See, this is not a very literal statement that the author has made. It was more of a figurative statement, so definitely not making anyone sick. Second one, the crash weakened the economic's ability to withstand other pressures. Yes, when you get an infection, your body becomes weak. So any other, pressure comes, your body collapses, correct? So this makes a lot of sense. Now third one, the crash was an untreatable disease. Obviously, crash was not an untreatable disease, okay? So it was not a disease to begin with. So third one won't be our answer. The fourth option, a single event caused the collapse of the economy. Again, it started. He said very clearly that the stock market crash was the onset of it, but not the cause. So it definitely did not cause the collapse of the economy. So I can remove this option. Now the best possible answer is second option. Now, if you watch till here, then please do not forget to hit that like button. It motivates us a lot to keep bringing videos like these for you every single day. Share this video with a friend who would like to get in-depth explanation of a passage and the question options so that they could do better at VARC. Do check out our other videos of LRDI and Quant also from the 100 Days to CAT Test series. Subscribe to this channel and I'll see you in the next video.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.